to a group discussing embracing identity, I'm already scared and embarrassed. So I'll pass it
Hmm.
straight to you, Paul, with your name, how you feel right now, anything that comes up, even just hearing the term in a nutshell, and then we can dig in deeper later.
Cool. So my name is Paul. I feel pretty good this evening. I've been up and down all day, like with a cold and a sore throat. So kind of my energy, like physically, has been up and down, but also my thoughts have been kind of following that. So there's been quite a bit of doubt over the last couple of days. In terms of kind of like the identity stuff, yeah, this has kind of been a big thing for me a lot of my life. Probably the biggest part has been having to keep kind of body image in check for my work. So I was a personal trainer for 20 years. So I kept myself fit for the most part of it, and healthy and looking good for the client. And then I remember sort of 4 or 5 years ago, just kind of like I just didn't want to do that anymore, and I let it all go. Put on quite a bit of weight, felt lazy and shit, but kind of just wanted to do it for myself. So
Mhm.
um, it was good to go there. And I think nowadays I tend to do the exercise stuff, the nutrition stuff, kind of for myself, for my health, and kind of so I'm fit and strong as I get older, so I can enjoy life and stuff. So yeah, this is a topic that's like close to heart. So I'm sure a lot of stuff will come up for me.
Thank you. Fancy passing it on.
Yeah, pass it on to Philip.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name's Philip Bedwell. Sorry, Philip John Bedwell. It's important I mention that because I like to take on my father's name now. Um, I'm feeling incredibly lucky and happy and blessed to be doing this. I almost felt when I got the grant that it was going to take me to a place. Oh, it's going to give you, the university giving me something creative to do before I can get back to my real thing of being an actor. And I've recently realised that being able to do this has given me more than I could ever expect. It's connecting me in ways to people that I've never seen, connecting me to myself, to my history, to my identities as a performer, as a human, as a father, in ways, as a lover that I've never had before. It's gifted me time to actually be in the moment and truly enjoy it. What Paul said really chimed in as well through being a teenager who was quite overweight and then being involved in wrestling, both performance wrestling and Brazilian Jiu Jitsu and catch wrestling, where you have to hit certain weights to be able to work to fight for real on that day. And if you don't make weight, it's one of the most embarrassing things you can do. And there are healthy practices to weigh less. So the minute you step off the scales, you can start to rehydrate and gain as much as 4 to 5 kilos, 10 to 12 pounds in a few hours. I had that in my life a lot. In the last couple of years, however, I like using my body as a science project to see what works and what doesn't. And I had a big epiphany a few years ago as well, where I wasn't hitting certain weights that I could use to. And I just burst out laughing, thinking, but I'm getting to do this and I choose to do it. And it's fun and I'm enjoying it. And my little child inside of me, even though I was just practicing picking heavy things up and down. So next week I could pick slightly heavier things up and down. I was really enjoying it. And I realized now the point of exercise for me is to move through this world without pain or constraint, both physical and mental. So I just find the joy in everything now. And if I don't make a lift or make a workout or eat a bit of banoffee cheesecake one week or a lot, considering when I was in LA, I don't mind because it's all part of this glorious journey we're all on. And yeah, I just feel very blessed and privileged to be sharing this space with you all tonight. And thank you for being also honest and open and coming with me on this journey, because it's moments like this where, for me, I just feel truly part of something bigger. And I'm so grateful you're all here to tell your stories and that I can listen to you. So thank you.
Thank you. Fancy passing it on?
Jan, go on, Mr. Technological.
My name's Jan. I'm feeling more grounded now after we've had our 2 minutes. It's been a real roller coaster few weeks and a fucking roller coaster of a day. So up and down. And it's interesting talking about identities because I've definitely been in touch with, I would say, double-digit identities today. Like, which part of me is showing up for what? What is this triggering? Why am I acting in this way? Why can't I act in that way? What the fuck is going on? I've been doing it this way and it's not happening. And then the child has come, well, the wounded child has come out quite a lot today. The tempestuous, impetuous, motherfucking little child of like, why is it not going the way that it's meant to go? Why is nobody giving me what I deserve? So, yeah, from an identity perspective, right now, it feels more connected to how do I show up in different situations and what contexts trigger certain identities, personalities, responses from me. And it's certainly been something I've been interested in for as long as I can remember, but it's quite alive right now. So yeah, that's me. I pass to Nuruddin. I haven't heard him this evening.
Thank you, Jan. My name is Nuruddin. I am feeling a bit tired right now. And in the topic of identity is something I am really exploring at the moment. It's just kind of a new thing to me in terms of understanding who I really am and what I represent and like being in my body kind of thing. And yeah, so that kind of, now that I'm saying I'm in my head, actually, like if I'm not in my head, I'm actually me. So it's kind of intellectually, I know who I am. Like being in terms of being, I know who I am, but intellectually, when I think about it, I forget who I am. So it's just being with who I really am and how I feel and what makes it happen and what doesn't make it happen. Like when I think about things, that kind of takes from really feeling who I am in different situations. That's me for now. Over to you, Adam.
Thanks, Nuruddin. My name's Adam. I'm feeling quite self-conscious at the moment, which I don't quite know where that's coming from. I think knowing this is filmed, it's quite an interesting sort of sense of whether that does that change my behavior, and what changes my behavior, and what protection do I put on myself when I'm, when certain defenses come up or certain things that I feel, I need to change the way I'm being. Right now, what's coming up for me around the idea of identity is two things really. One is I've just come back from like 2 weeks in a sort of performing mode, making films and being behind the camera, and being in quite an intense work performance mode has meant that I've been quite like mono focused on that particular kind of part of me. And like I noticed coming back how layers have come back in, certain, more than just habits, but different sort of parts of me have sort of been able to kind of rebalance. So yeah, I'm interested in the kind of aspect of our identity and work. I think that's quite a big one for me, and one that I've definitely recognized that I've worn different masks in those different environments. And the second one is my son goes away to university on Tuesday. I'm a single dad, and he's the second of my sons to leave home. So literally, I will be empty nested, and that's on Tuesday. So yeah, that's in 4 days' time. And yeah, so I think for me, that will by its just very nature change my identity. Or I notice that I'm apprehensive about how that will be for me and how I react. I think for me, it's about reaction, whether I'm proactive or reacting to certain situations, and where am I coming from choice, or where am I, allowing things to alter me. So yeah, I think those are quite live for me right now. So I'll try and I'm interested in bringing those to the group as well. So yeah, looking forward to the conversation. And thanks. I'll drop it down to Martin.
Thanks, Sam. My name is Martin. Feels good to be here with you guys. Kind of exciting to be doing something in the evening, and something different and new. I'm pretty excited about that. As far as my identity, I think a lot of my identity is tied up with being a father and a husband. And now increasingly it's moving towards being tied up with being a facilitator for the men's groups and doing that work. And I was just doing my BO for Kenny's website, and part of it is that was a good insight for me into how I see my identity, and I'll have to rewrite it, I think, after this call because I'm hoping for some good insights. But from that call, it was sort of mechanical engineer, adventurer, facilitator was sort of where the BO was going, and I don't know if that is really my identity. That might be my men's speak identity, but it's not really who I am. For me, who I am is really father, husband, and then whatever I choose to do with my life after that. And physically, yeah, I liked what you guys were saying about the physical stuff. It made me appreciate I'm happy with my physical identity, active, not very flexible actually, but pretty strong, healthy. Yeah, I think that's me. I'll pass to Nomura.
Thank you.
Thanks, Martin. I'm Nomura. The topic of identity is it fair to say it's very close to my heart? It's a thread that's kind of gone in and out throughout my life. Even now, I can feel a kind of timidness to talk about it because I feel growing up, I have a cultural identity which is very different from my perceived ethnic identity. Growing up in Malaysia, I'm often perceived as being Malay or Chinese, but I was raised by the Indian side of my family. And that's a certain identity that I haven't really seen. I haven't really shared with anyone, in the sense that I've not met people with that exact experience. And going out, it's always been, if I'm with my Malay or Chinese friends, I kind of have to merge with them. And if I'm with new Indian people, at what point is it safe for me to kind of disclose that actually I share a lot of cultural identity with you? And I think growing up, that's left me with the experience of I kind of have a very personal relationship to my identity, and internally it's quite clear how I feel about it. But externally with other people, there's almost always this question in my mind of who and when who's going to give me permission, and when will I have the permission to kind of disclose and embody the parts of my identity which are perhaps not totally obvious. And I also really resonated with what you said earlier, Nuruddin, about how certain aspects of my identity they can feel quite heady. Like when I'm a facilitator, when I started facilitating, even now, sometimes I'm just like, well, what should I do as a facilitator? Or when I'm with clients, it's like, what should I do as a therapist or a coach? Or when I'm with friends in a group, I'm like, I'm kind of aware I occupy this social role in the group, and what should I do as someone who occupies that social role? And I am kind of on this learning journey of being like, oh, actually, if I try to act or behave from those like intellectual roles, I can often act and behave in ways that aren't resonant with how I feel in the moment. And a lot of my identity, I think, it shifts moment to moment. And I am definitely on that process of just trying to be more present and act from where I am and just allow that to be an expression of my identity. Yeah, I guess that's me. I'll pass it back to Kenny.
Thank you. My name is Kenny. I feel scared, actually. I feel scared of what might come out. And I feel like maybe I should just babble things out and make a mess and pick at it later. So much to Paul's delight calling me grandpa, I turned 60, I think maybe 21 days ago, but you know, I'm not counting. And today on the way home, so I'm the only wage earner in my family with my wife and I. And I think it was about 2 years ago, year and a half ago, she listened to my wife manages our money. She listened to some podcast about you put this here and do that and whatever. And one of the things they said to do is buy insurance, buy healthcare insurance. So in case I go kaput or something's up with me, then at least we have an income. And we chose some sort of a very simple insurance that I don't intend to get ill. So in 6 months, if I haven't earned, then we would have enough for us to survive comfortably, but not live in opulence, which is what we do anyway. It took about a year for this silly arse incompetent company to find our files, lose our files, pass it here and there, ask for blood tests. I went to Harley Street, then I went somewhere here local, lose the files, get more blood tests, more doctor's visits, and it just went on for about a year. And initially they quoted us something like £85 per month. And it's like, okay, well, it just doesn't mean anything. Let's find out. And then the next thing is today, while I was traveling back, my wife gets an email from them saying, okay, we'll do it for something like £150 a month. But
Jesus.
if anything is up with your neck or your back or your hands or anything to do with the muscles or giblets or whatever related to your neck or back or hands, then we're not going to cover you for that. And also, now you're over 60, you're fucked, and we can only what do you call it, insure you for 7 years. So that's something that I didn't think about or know about in aging and insurance and taking care of that. So that was a bit of an uncomfortable shock. What's good is I spend like over £100 a return trip from my part of Wales to London, and now I get a third off because
Yeah.
I'm senior. Senior. Do you like that word, Paul? Senior? I think it means better then. Anyway. And the stuff that I've been scared to say is I had body dysmorphia. My body, and this is one thing that I just find so difficult to say, and I've only said it 2 or 3 times, and I've even referred to it as a minor deformity. But for a lot of my life, my early life, I had inverted nipples, and it totally fucking killed me. I didn't want to take my clothes off anyway, but it was just the hugest deformity. How can I ever go anywhere or do anything or be normal, be a normal boy? And then I was brought up after refugee camp in a small town in Wales, and I was always checked out in the changing rooms, which is quite normal. It's anything different or curious, but I didn't like it. I just wanted to be white, hairless, and skinny, same as everyone else, so I could be invisible. I don't think I've ever been. The one time I remember being invisible is when I was in Mexico for a while, and I had long curly hair, and I fitted in. A lot of people have wanted to have sex with me because I've been as close to black as they could get. And there's this black fetish that's been around for a long, long time. Or maybe they fancied me. There's a guru type fetish, and people in the old days would throw that at me. So I've had some very strange sexual advances, and people feeling like they have access, especially when I had long curly hair. It's like long hair, especially if it's curly, it's like you're allowed to touch my body however you want. And the number of women that have grabbed my dick is just ridiculous, including friends. Um, and that the whole sexualization. And for me, it's like I'm not much of a slag, and I haven't really wanted to be someone's experiment. I remember there's an old 70s band, The 3 Degrees, and I used to be in love with Sheila Ferguson, who was known as the one with the big tits in the middle. And I remember her in an interview saying that she just avoided relationships and sex because she didn't want people to say, you know, that one with the big tits in the middle, I've had her. Stuff like that. It was just like being hairy, going to the changing rooms, and I would pull my socks right up over my legs so people wouldn't see how hairy I am. I generally avoid changing rooms anyway because of the above. And also, first day in the changing rooms in secondary school, I was physically attacked by a boy from the valleys shouting at me that I fuck white women. And I was from the Catholic school. I wasn't even sure what fucking was anyway. And I didn't think I should be doing it until I'm married. And it's a blessed thing where I should say thank you at the end or something. But that affected me. I stayed away from changing rooms. And I remember after pulling my socks up, taking them down to have to go in the showers, and the static, I was like a bloody womble. The hairs were just out like a porcupine. It was ridiculous. So I have died of shame and embarrassment and self-loathing because of my body for most of my body. And if I needed to hate myself, I would go to I'm fat and ugly, or I'm poor, and neither of them would ever fail me. So that's my first outspilling. The floor is open.
I want to say something funny first. When you were talking about senior, I was like, I think maybe he's that old that he's misread it and it's senile, not senior.
Do you know, I'm that old bloke who will prance around advertising that I'm 60 because I know I look fucking good. How sad is that? And
no, balls, you can do it.
Stupid old blokes who did that. And now I'm that. Terrible. Sorry, you were saying, Philip?
I think if it's good, wear it. Maybe it's because, you know, the whole Mexican thing you were saying about, maybe it's senor.
Patrão is the word in my language. So my family's from Goa. It's patrão. There's a Portuguese word that's very similar and a Spanish word that's very similar, isn't there? Do you know it? Yeah. 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 And that feels strangely like home. Yeah. And I don't want to be using age or looks or any gimmicky shit as a sales pitch. I think similar to what some of you have said, I want me to be me and for there to be love rather than me to be a sales pitch or a competition and for there to be some sort of survival. And I find myself playing the game. Go for it.
I think for me the biggest change for me was realizing a lot of people I train and myself for the longest time as well, that was when you have a certain thing or look a certain way, then love can begin. Whereas I've now reversed that and realized love starts it and how you look becomes a side effect. You can have all those things you wish for in terms of feeling what is happiness, fitness, wealth, joy before you hit a certain target, and recognize that and enjoy it and be. If probably my biggest problem has always been it's part of my driver, but also the problem is that I always focus on the next thing. So even if something goes really well for me, it was like, yeah, cool, now. Or if something was bad, it was like, let's focus on that and we've got to repair that and we've got to do better. And then recently it's just been, if something goes really well, I enjoy it, I sit in it and realise I deserve it and I'm worthy of it. And then looking a certain way, having happiness about my body, it's great, but my body will change in time, but my feeling of happiness won't. So why not keep that? Why, if it, I think the other big one as well was listening to a Johnny Wilkinson podcast, and he said this mind blowing line: if you knew everything was going to work out perfectly, how would it affect you in this moment? And that's what I've just been feeling like, because we can worry about it. I can worry about everything. I can feel that everything could go wrong and forebode joy and think that the wheels are going to fall off any second. But I choose to believe everything's going to be great, and I want to live in that knowledge, and I do. So I am.
Thank you.
I think something's come up for me, and it reminds me of when I first came to the men's groups. And A, I'd never heard of a men's group, and B, the idea of being with a group of men really was unusual for me, and I felt very apprehensive. And it's strange actually, just sitting with you guys tonight, just reflecting on that, because that's a good decade ago. And so identity around being a man, I think, was something I'd never really actually even contemplated, or at least consciously contemplated. But then suddenly I felt very vulnerable going into a room of men, which is curious in itself. So yeah, I'm just intrigued. And when I occasionally mention to different people over different walks of life that I go to men's groups, there's sometimes I feel this need to explain or excuse it or defend it before they've even asked about what it is. So that's quite interesting. So I just thought I'd throw that one in, because it just came up for me just listening to everyone and just reflecting on this group and this notion of identity. So that was just coming up for me in the moment.
Thank you.
Realize that how kind of jokey I can be about age. Like, the comments are made before the 2 minutes. Like, they feel now they feel quite hurtful. Like I kind of sit with that. Is that okay to make that? And I realize that actually I've got quite a few issues around kind of age. Like, something that came to mind was, I remember thinking about my dad before he passed away. So he was 40 when he passed away, that he looked old. And that age felt really old to me. Like 40 felt old. And now I'm 47. I'm like, well, it doesn't feel old. I don't feel old. It's not an old age, but I think I kind of had this thing in my head that 40 was kind of it for people, and this whole kind of idea of putting your feet up and you should be taking it easier in life and all that stuff. And I don't know, that for me has really been challenged a lot recently. I feel different about that stuff. I don't know whether the joking about the age thing is acceptable.
I
And
think
if someone was to joke about my age, would that be acceptable? Like I can make particularly working in the kitchen recently, doing the chefing. I've been working with a lot of young people, early 20s, and I felt old in their company just because I haven't got the same mental speed or the same learning as they have. So yeah, it's definitely up.
That's really interesting that when you were saying about age, I was like, yeah, whatever. And then when you were saying about the younger people in the kitchen, I'm definitely noticing an identity tension on social media. So I'm wanting to get into like marketing my services a lot more. I'm kind of leaning into LinkedIn a lot, and there are quite a few people on LinkedIn that are, what's the word they use? Slaying it right now. Not even smashing it, it's slaying it. So it's totally new nomenclature. And one of the people doing it, she's like 25.
Jesus.
And created a multi-million pound business in the last year. And I'm like, fuck me, how can that happen? Like, she doesn't even know her ass from her elbow at that age. What the fuck is going on? And here I am 40 odd years into my life's work, and I'm struggling to like break through, like, and even know what the rules are, let alone how to fucking use them. So like age wasn't a thing until you've brought that in. So thanks very much, Paul. You just fucked with my head again.
Can I add something to that? So I was coming back on the plane from LA, and I ended up sitting next to a mother and her child. The child, 7. Anyway, and I was talking to the mum. She was asking me for good places to eat in England. And as we were about to take off, the child said to us, "Can you both be quiet, please?" And he was filming out the window. And I was like, "Oh, what are you doing?" And he goes, "Oh, I'm just filming the plane taking off, and then I'll film the plane landing." And I was like, "Oh, okay, what's that for?" "That's from a YouTube channel." "Is it?" "Yeah, yeah, yeah." I put the titles on it and stuff, and he's editing it all in the middle. I went, "Have you got many followers?" And yeah, 350,000. And he's talking like he's the following, and but his knowledge and his speed and his ability to edit and make these things eye-catching, and knowing the game and how to connect it all. It's as simple as, I don't know, back in the day. I'm trying to think of something that I could do easy back in the day, like, I don't know, knowing the times tables. For him, it's just all connected, and he can just instantly knows how to get his followers, what time to post it, how to make it eye-catching for other 8-year-olds and stuff. And that sensibility now, and I'm not angry at it. I'm just like, I find it sort of beautiful. It's like an evolution of technology, but just how they're learning their right. Like, to him, sorry, probably me to him now, I look like a cave painter spraying my hand, blowing paint on my hand on the wall. And he's just like into this level of connection and understanding that I don't mourn not being able to know it, but it just find it mind blowing that, yeah, this feels like a whole new world that's developed without me even seeing it.
And that's 7 years old.
Yep. 50,000 followers for a year.
I'd have thrown him out the window.
And filmed it.
And filmed it. I'm not bothered editing it.
Just don't know how.
It's
Well,
raw footage.
I wouldn't have got the same amount of followers though. There's no point.
I find myself comparing myself to blokes in their 30s. And inside of me, I'm in my mid-30s. I haven't shifted. And being 60 was a bit weird because my 50s were great, better than my 40s. My 40s were great, better than my 30s, etc. But maybe they were so great because of an outlook. And in my mid-30s, I came back from 5 years abroad, and I started again in the UK, and I just felt free and me more than anything, not limited by one culture, but free to be me. And it's not right that I compare my body to fit, strong, active, whatever it is, 30 somethings. It's weird, but I do. And I find a lot of blokes of my age, I don't even look at because I don't really think they're my age.
Yeah.
And even some blokes who are younger than me, if they've got children, then they are older blokes. And I haven't got children, so I'm a younger bloke. Or if they've got, I don't know, some sort of a settled house and a car, because I don't drive, and it's like, well, they're real grown-ups or something. They are at a man stage, or they're older man stage, where I'm at a almost like a single man, free-spirited stage. And I'm very happy to be married, and I'm moving more into my home in my life. But I wonder if I'm moving also into a slowing down or a settled. But it's weird the way that I look at men of that age and I compare.
Interesting.
I think that comparison thing's really interesting because I've been hearing you say that, and I was reminded of what Namora was saying around comparing myself. I forget the exact words you used, Namora, but like comparing myself to a Malay Chinese or an Indian, and where do I fit in all of that? And I think that's the thing that's still been moving for me since you checked in. Like, the identity that I have versus the identity people perceive. And there was something else you said that has really been rattling. Like, how do I forget exactly what you said, but it's like, how do I choose? No, it was when you were talking about when you're with Indians, when I choose to share that part of me. And it's like, I think that's what's going on for me. Like, choosing which part of me I bring into what situation. And that word choice is really important. And what I picked up on in the way that you checked in, which may be a projection of mine, is that uncertainty and fear around, is it safe? Like, can I bring this part of me in? And is it appropriate? Is it safe? And also when you were talking about that mixed cultural thing, I realized it's only been about 5 years, maybe 10 tops, that when people have asked me like to fill in forms and stuff, I've said mixed race. I've always been mixed race. People see me because I present as a white guy. I just have always put, yeah, white. He's like, oh yeah, I'm white. I'm in white. I'm white. And it's like, I'm not white. I'm mixed race. So what part of that external narrative of people saying this is how I see you that I just took on and was like, oh, I didn't even think about it on a sense of white. I'm mixed race. I'm proudly mixed race. It's part of my culture, part of my heritage, and part of why I'm so fucking good looking. Don't laugh at that, Kenny.
Naturally.
Yeah,
Got something stuck in my throat.
if you're proud of yourself, name it. I think it's brilliant. I do agree. Something that's really resonated with me as well, because it's something that I'm really focusing on in this performance artwork as well. What Adam was saying about the difference of when people are being recorded. There was something I did at a wrestling show, which will be coming out shortly, where I recorded all the wrestlers before the show began, before they'd got into costume. Then I got them straight after their matches where they were still coming down and still in the performative state, and then saying another thing about who they felt they were and how they felt they were straight after. And the opening bits, the bits before they'd got into character and they were just stating who they were, how they felt. The most interesting bit for me was a 2A person that agreed to do it. They all did this. They all looked at the camera, then they all looked off to the left or looked up and went. And that for me, with everyone, it really trying to understand, everyone was making a decision with themselves on what they were going to present, whether they were going to be, everything's off the table, I'm just going to say exactly what I am, or in that nod moment, this is who I choose to be. This is what I choose to say to a recorded device. This is what will be captured forever. And I find that tremendously interesting. Like what are the choices we make in that split second? What are our values or our beliefs? And it sort of chimes into what you said as well, Jan, about like something that maybe you've not questioned for a long time of value. And now suddenly you're like, no, I want to state this. This is something that pride or just wanting to put it out there that this is what I am. And unashamed, I don't know the reasons why you do it. But there's lots of things I've said recently about being a father. Unfortunately, I lost my children, but wanting to state that because I want to honor my children, taking in my middle name more because my parents gave it to me for a reason. And no matter what happens with us, me and them, I'm proud of them and I want to honor them by using my middle name. So I think maybe that is something to do with my aging and my identity, to take these things on, not be ashamed of them or not trying to hide them, just being proudly and honestly me. And if it comes up into a question or a debate or having to explain something, not being frightened of that and not turning away.
Thank you. Namora, anything you'd like to say?
Yeah, although I'm having trouble figuring out how to formulate it. I was thinking about what you were saying, Jan, about noting down on forms that you're mixed race, even though it's always been the case. And just this afternoon, I was having a talk with a friend of mine, and both of us are very male presenting. But we're both we actually both have a gender identity that's sort of non-binary, and it kind of falls under the trans umbrella, in the sense that we don't really, yeah, I don't know how to, I don't quite know how to talk around it. It's so complicated, but we were both talking about how when we're hanging out with men or like male friends, that's a disclosure that we will sometimes choose to make, but we're also aware that it's we were kind of talking about how it's an important disclosure, but we're also aware that in certain circles or with certain groups, that disclosure comes with a not insignificant loss of hierarchy and status. My friend who I was talking to, he's also very, very white passing. But once he started to come out, like especially in his workplace, that he's actually mixed, and I think he has a black grandparent. He has really, observed how people treat him differently, and that he's lost social status and some hierarchy because of that. And I think it's really interesting how there are some identities that I could pass as. I think there's a bigger picture thing with how some identities are more valorized than others. I don't know if valorized is an English word, but I think you know what I mean. And I also think it's interesting that despite how one may be able to pass as an identity that's more socially valorized, it can just the feeling of disingenuity alone can stop you from doing that eventually. Although it's so much easier. I was also thinking about how when I came to Europe, I speak English very well for a Malaysian. And I kind of, I don't know, I maybe grew up around quite a lot of European like cultural media growing up, which is very strange because I come from a lower class and that's not something that's typically associated with lower class Southeast Asians. But that meant that when I came to Europe, I had the privilege of, oh, okay, I kind of understand, you know, the the nomenclature, that's the word that you used earlier, and how social interactions go and how things work. And after a while, I kind of realized, oh, I understand it and I know how to play the game, but it really feels like a game to me. And after a while, I just couldn't do it anymore. And it meant that, I've lost standing and I've not been able to hang out with people who are kind of like, who have been based in Europe for a long time, like indigenous Europeans, and I'm hanging a lot more with people of color, and I'm aware that there is a social and a socio-economic loss that comes with that, in some way, shape, or form. That's what came to my mind when, during your share.
Thank you.
Mm.
Nuruddin, anything you'd like to say?
Not at the moment.
One thing that crossed my mind when and you spoke to Namora about the choosing to share cultural roots and stuff is that I'm very used to showing people that I'm the same as them in order to not only fit in and belong, but also to not be a threat. It's almost like I need to say, don't worry, I'm not going to be, I don't know, shitting on your floor or stealing things or shouting or being violent, or it's safe, don't worry. And I feel that I have done it with the English, with the Welsh, with the Irish to an extent, with the Fijians after living there, with the Jewish, with the Ugandans to an extent, but not really, because I haven't been around a lot of Ugandans and I'm not Ugandan. I was born in Uganda, but I'm not Ugandan. That doesn't feel. And I was brought up in Wales, but I'm not Welsh. Even that, it doesn't feel. With none of them should I be allowed. But with all of them, I kind of feel like I have been let in and I can identify, and I don't want to be a threat. And I just want to kind of be peacefully part of things. So it's a really weird thing. And for most of my for all of my earlier life, it was grief of always being an outsider and never knowing what it's like to be invisible and to belong and to fit in. And then later on, I realized the privilege that even just in England, I am close to people from the lower class, the middle class, and the upper class. And I've been let into so many different communities in different countries, even on both sides of the fence where they don't like or get on with each other. And I feel very, very lucky about that. But I've never experienced actually belonging to any culture. And people of my color, I find, are the most difficult because I don't get it, and I'm clearly different. And people from Goa, I wasn't really brought up around Goans. I'm a crap Goan. I'm an absolutely shit Goan. Goans play instruments and sing and cook and fix cars and are very educated and, you know, shit like I'm just and know so many prayers, like really specific prayers for funerals and things like that. I'm just shit at being Goan. Um, so yeah, it's really weird. But that experience of Mexico meant so much to me, where people would stand next to me and just casually talk. And it was like, oh my God, where for years in Sydney, in London, all over, I was stared at. There would so often be a second take. So yeah, it's really now I'm listening to myself, I feel like I am such a wannabe. I want to be the same as everyone and the age that I feel, just so I can maybe quite simply, just so I can be one of the boys, so I can fit in and I can be invisible and I'm not weird in the playground because I've got issues going on or I'm different.
I totally relate to that experience of when you were saying about feeling out of place with Goan Indians. I really feel out of place with Malaysians, and they capped it very quickly. I don't really look like what Malaysians should look like, although I kind of do. It's very strange. But it's also when I'm in Europe and I'm hanging out with other Southeast Asians or other Southeast Asians, it's like we don't really have the same, I don't know, cultural background, and we're very different people because of it. And we look similar, but it's hard to, I don't know. Yeah, I think you put it way better than I could, so I'm just gonna leave it there.
I'm really moved by, there was something you said, Kenny, I identify with them. There was that you kind of specifically said, I identify with them or with it. And it's kind of hit me. It's like, yeah, identifying with as opposed to I am identified as. And I think there's something like when you were talking about you were able to wend between the different classes and sides and everything else. I think that identification with like is an empathy. I can stand in their shoes. And I was also when he said, I just want to be one of the boys and melt into the background. I was like, is that really true? Because when you said it, it was like I can hear there's a part of you that's like, yeah, that's like the driver that has been going on, and I can resonate with that a little bit of like, I just don't want there to be any hassle, but I don't want to just melt into the background. So I'm just curious what's going on with that.
Maybe I crave the experience and then it will be done. I can't believe what keeps going on through my head now is like chasing losing my virginity, and then once it's done, it's done. What a relief. Then I don't, it doesn't mean I'm going to be a sex fiend for the rest of my life, but the job's done and I can relax and get on with my life. Do you know what I mean?
Do you think it's because having that validation of self, it's sort of like something you said, Kenny, as well about talking about it really hit me as well about now if someone's got a car or if they've got a certain token of adulthood. And I think it's For me, maybe it's, are we seeking, or are you seeking rites of passage, a certain point to say, this is where I am in my life now. This is a totem or a mark of, this is where I should be, or this is what or this is something where I should have at this age now, or this part of my life now.
What I feel it is me unlearning and rewriting an old script where not only were we told that things were for other people, including going to the fair when the fair was in town, it's for other people. My brother and I learned to ask for nothing and want for nothing because we were refugees, we were poor, we didn't have anything. Everything was for other people. And now I'm growing into being one of the other people. Just being safe, being normal. I don't want to learn to drive. I don't need a big car or a big house or stuff like that. You know, I could probably get those three things with mortgages and lease or however people do it. I don't know, but no, I need to be safe and in love. And it really hurts the way that I see people being ruled by marketing, whether it's social media or media or whatever programming. You know, wasn't it Freud's nephew? What was that documentary called? I don't remember now. Brilliant documentary. Where this guy, for example, one of his tasks was to sell cigarettes to women. He was working for a cigarette company. So he got, I think it was women protesting, maybe it was feminist times or something, or maybe it was something to do with war, suffragettes. I don't remember. But he got all the women to light a cigarette at the same time. Suddenly power, liberation, etc. But if I have a six-pack and a nice shirt and a babe and a car and a tan and blah, 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 then maybe I'll be good enough to hang out with. And that is what's being sold, and it works. It so fucking works because it crucifies and cripples and breaks good people into not good enough, to enslave them into improving themselves somehow so they can reconnect from the spirit that got broken. And what I love about us is we cut all of that out. And by we, I mean the Men Speak community, at least how I am with you and the intention with the community is I feel what we're saying is let's hang out right here and right now. And if anything's in the way, let's speak it out so it can pass and we can just stay connected and grow in connection, which is the opposite to that. It's right here and right now.
100%.
Something comes up for me around belonging and a sense of security about, you know, belonging in oneself as opposed, not as opposed to, but in connection with other people. And I was away on this last 2 weeks with a group of guys who are ex-military, and they had a real kinship and bond between them, and what I would describe as quite secure sense of identity, in the sense that they, well, I mean, I'm not going to assume anything, but the way it came across was kind of good banter, a lot of shared jokes, a shared language, a shared attitude to a certain extent. And I felt quite like the odd one out. And so I was just thinking, as you were talking, Kenny, about a sense of security and identity, and like, to what extent do I change my identity in order to feel more secure with people? And I noticed that I would change my particular way of speaking with them in order to fit in somehow, whether unconsciously or consciously. So yeah, I think that's just what's coming up for me about to what extent do I, you know, do I know what that secure identity is, and I'm happy in it with on my own without it needing a firm affirmation from anyone else, or do I need to yeah, do I need to change in order to kind of fit in, basically?
Is there anything? Sorry, was that you?
No, it was me, but go on.
Go for it. Go for it.
I was gonna say that I really relate to that because it made me think with my Indian identity that growing up I was so afraid to disclose it because I felt like while it was very personal and it was mine in a way, it didn't actually belong to me. It belonged to Malaysian Indians. And my fear was always if I disclose it and they deny it, they're they can gatekeep me from it, right? Because ask anyone, put me next to a couple of Malaysian Indians and ask them like, who's the Malaysian Indian here? They're not going to point at me. And it's been a huge thing for me, what you said at the end, Adam. It's like what I think, I'm paraphrasing, but what I got from it was kind of like building my own relationship to that identity. And I'm thinking about how recently I had some friends over, and one of them is an Indian woman, and she's quite new. She doesn't know me that well. And they asked for tea, and I made, masala chai, and I make a really good masala chai. And she was astonished, and she was like, "How do you make such good masala chai?" And I just said, "Oh, I was raised by the Indian side of my family, and that's my relationship to it, and it's true." And it was like, oh, and there was a connection, and I didn't feel like I needed to prove that I understand everything and I have to prove that I know the culture better than you to fit in. It's like, I know the culture, and that's part of my relationship with it.
I cringed when you started speaking, as I remembered my fear of someone saying, "No, you're not."
I didn't quite have the fear of no, you're not. I had a slightly different sense of, so Polish, Norwegian, Venezuelan mix, and my dad's side is Polish. And when we were younger, so I don't know, between the ages of like 5 and 8, 5 and 9, something like that, we'd share Christmases with the Polish side of the family. And my dad's brother, who's the other Pole, and his kids in London in a Polish community, spoke Polish, knew all the Polish songs and cultures and everything, and we'd do a Polish Christmas, and I'd be like, what the fuck is going on? Like, we are family, and I don't know who the fuck you are, or what the fuck I'm meant to do. And then, I think it was like mid-teens, my mum, early mid-teens, I think my mum had just got so bored of Polish Christmas all the time. She was like, right, I'm bringing in some of my heritage, like the Norwegian and the Venezuelan side of it. And we did that for a while. And then I think it was early 20s, I was with someone who was Norwegian. I was like, oh yeah, we'll do a Norwegian Christmas. And I did it how my mum did it. And they were like, this isn't a Norwegian Christmas. What the fuck are you talking about? I was like, well, it's what my mum taught me. So I'm assuming that that's what her mum taught her, or what she could remember from that. And it's like, what the fuck? And ultimately, I think I'm now at a point where it's like, none of that really matters. It's like, I mean, it matters in as much as if I'm at a gathering, a social gathering, I want to be able to feel an active part and included. But I think where I am right now, rather than feeling like, well, these are my family and I don't know them, it'd be like, okay, can you teach me the song? Or how does this all fit in? Or what would be a good phrase to use soon? Or something like that. It would be a lot more, how do I engage so that I can feel involved, rather than, well, this is all fucked and I don't know what I'm doing. I think I'd have like a second or half a second of that. And then it's like, all right, so how do I engage?
Do you, Yen, or you, Adam, or anyone else want to talk about what you brought up to do with work and identity?
I think Martin was just about to say something. I don't know whether.
Oh, Martin.
Yeah. I was going to say something came up when Adam and Jan were speaking about how society gives us, a lot of people, myself included, our identities. and the people around us give us our identities, and then we spend our lives trying to live up to them. Or at least I did. I tried to live up to being an engineer, being a father, being a parent, being a husband, being these things which society kind of expected from me. And it's only when I started to question those fundamentals that I actually started to find out who I really am, and go back to my childhood, back to where I really came from, what I really lived through, and got more in touch with who I really am, and not what society told me I was, or what my friends thought I was, or what my employer thought I was, or what my workmates thought I was, or what my wife thought I was, even, or my kids. I am who I am. It's not a sum total of what everyone else thinks of me and what society thinks of me, or what society thinks I should be. So yeah, that's my path right now, is finding out who the fuck am I, and really, and that's why I'm glad to be on this call.
I love how clearly you named who you no longer need to be from what was put on you.
Yeah.
Go on, Jan.
No, I was mid thought, and I was like, no, I'm gonna close because it's not formed. So
Well, we've got 10 minutes. I wonder if anyone who's been quiet would like to say anything. Otherwise, that's fine if you don't. I wondered about the checkout round. And I wondered if anyone's carrying anything, or if everyone feels safe.
I think it's Philip. Well,
No, please, no, it's fine.
as I say, I started, so I'll finish. It's such a big topic. I think that's kind of like skimming surfaces. Or no, actually not surfaces, but skimming all kinds of different angles into the subject. And you just mentioned work there, Kenny, and I think I loved your word, no more, of valorization, or that notion of value. And I certainly know that in my work career, I have performed quite considerably for a lot of it in order to find value from external sources, in order to achieve a certain status that I felt I needed to have. And I know that's quite, actually, I mean, talking with a lot of men in men's groups, I know that's quite common at a certain age, particularly. And having two sons, been raising them for the last sort of 7 years, just noticing, particularly my eldest son, the extent to which work's become, much more of his identity in his early 20s, and how that's changed his sort of personality. So yeah, I think I'm only just starting to deconstruct that now, much later in life. And I think, that issue of like coming from a conscious choice of like where I want to bring my value in the world, not that it needs to be measured against an external sort of yardstick. I think it's the kind of, and that's I think the growth that I've found being in men's groups is that I've been able to kind of trial that in a quite vulnerable way, try and be open and admit the things that I find really awkward or difficult, or things that or archetypes that I've created for myself that actually don't need to exist anymore. And I think men's groups for me has been a radical change for me, because it's been a place where I felt safe enough in order to kind of question that and notice other people's behavior and kind of not necessarily copy them, but just like, oh, okay, that's interesting. Their example is a different way of being. Perhaps I'll look into that. So I think, there's real value in, I think, leadership in terms of example in these groups, and by just being more authentic, whatever that means, sharing the journey, to allow others to kind of go, oh, okay, that's, I hadn't even, I've noticed that sort of pin drop sometimes in groups where people go, it's like, oh, really? So you mean I don't have to be like that, or that doesn't need to be a thing? So yeah, that's just what's come up for me at the end of this conversation.
Thank you.
Did you want to go, Philip? I'm just
No,
conscious.
it's cool. No, it's fine.
I want to go because I have some thoughts and they're very clear in my head right now. The first one being that I was quite surprised when you offered a checkout round because I thought, same as Adam, yeah, identity is a really large topic and there's so many of us. And I don't know, I just assumed that it would go on for longer. Although that's not a criticism, that's just to express my me being startled. Something that I wanted to touch on about valorization is how I think in this instance I talked about choosing identity despite the loss of valorization. But something that flashed through my head is my best friend, whose family is an American father and a Chinese mother, and two of his brothers have kind of they're in their adulthood in their 20s and 30s, and they've denied that they're mixed. They now deny that they're mixed, that they have any Asian heritage, and they've become white supremacists in the United States, and they're hanging out with really dodgy people. And for me, that was like almost the flip side of that. And for me, it kind of brought me back to university. And that can potentially become a whole thing about race, but race is not the only vector of identity. But it brought me back to my time in university when I started working out, because working out meant that I got a bit bigger and I could hang out with the big boys. And I'm not really a gym junkie. It doesn't feel like the gym is not where I feel at home, but I was totally willing to kind of sacrifice that discomfort for a sense of for an identity that was, quote unquote, valuable. And I think just to close this off, something that I've loved about Men Speak is that it's really helped me feel a lot more comfortable and at home in my own identity. But beyond that, it's helped me feel more comfortable and at home in my own identity with other people who are really not a lot like me, and that has meant a lot. It's been monumental. That's the word I'll use. That's me.
Thank you.
I was just going to say, I just think for me, I agree. We've barely scratched the surface, but this is why I'm so excited about the retreat and stuff. I think having this complete immersion, being able to get away from the usual patterns and routines, we can all share so much. And just sitting here and being able to input some of my own thoughts, but more importantly, just hearing how giving you all being and how sharing you all are, it always astounds me what an amazing group of spirits you all are, to be able to self-reference and just be able to share the depth of your thoughts and feelings. It always means a lot to me, to every one of these groups I attend, and I'm so looking forward to being able to spend in the long play version, to have a chance to listen to the double album as opposed to the EP.
Paul, what are the dates? Do you want to do a quick spiel on the what do you call it, the retreat?
You've caught me off guard completely.
Well, my spiel of it is I'm looking forward to your performance exclusively for us. You've done
Thank
your
you.
Art Centre. That is going to be so intimate and personal just for us,
Thank you.
rather than something disconnected there. I can't wait to be checking out different towns and stuff, but hanging out, us being us, like being beamed down from the Starship Enterprise and exploring foreign lands like Margate, and
Yeah.
and sitting around fires and exploring. But for me, even after today, this is the tip of the iceberg, but inner and outer exploration, that's the name of the game for me. That is my buzz. That's my thing. Both. What are the dates, Paul?
So it's the 11th to the 13th of October. So it's 3 weeks from today, actually. So,
And how did people find it? Do they go to mensgroups.co.uk and scroll or something, or is it something?
Yeah, it's on events for Mighty Networks, and it's also on Meetup.
You're right.
speak. So yeah, you'll be able to find it on both of those.
One thing that I've been carrying since yesterday is I was asked to give a talk for a client and his company, and it was a conference, and I've been 2 or 3 years, and that I really love these people, and it was a great opportunity, and I fucking died. I was shit forever. I think it might have only been for a few minutes that I got properly. I was triggered by the stories I was telling, and I lost it, and I was just like, where am I going with this and what's going on? And I was babbling quickly. And then someone asked a question, someone asked another question, and I got back on track. And there was a lot of positive feedback and stuff like that. But the bottom line is, I was shit and I died, as far as I'm concerned, by my judgment. And yeah, that was quite a loss of identity. And that was the first talk that I gave since lockdown, live in a room. And it was just, yeah. And for me, for that to happen and to recover relatively quickly and accept it and move on, possibly because there were a lot of good conversations after, or, or maybe people were just being nice. But I could have self-loathed, I could have roasted myself and feasted on that for a long, long time. So yeah, that's identity death publicly. Any final words, anyone? Or shall we do our 2 minutes to go out?
I'm just sat with that thing you said around roasting and feasting on my own carcass. But you didn't say carcass, but that's what I was thinking. It's like, I know that part of me, and what's kind of coming more clearly from the way things have been going the last couple of weeks and this call is I can choose to do that differently. Now, when I'm feeling self-flagellatory, if that's even a word, like self-flagellation vibes, I can actually be like, okay, I can do this differently. So yeah, that's you sharing that about dying. It's like, yeah, okay, I can do this differently. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and sorry, Kenny, I just wanted to say about Adam saying the thing I really taking with me when I'm leaving is Adam saying that he's coming from a conscious choice where he wants to bring value into the world, and I think that really kind of summed it up for me. He's creating his own identity, so that was super inspiring.
Breathing, everyone. 2 minutes.